Well, hey there, welcome back to Return to Yehovah. Today I've got a question I want to pose to other Torah observant believers or other people that are trying to follow the Torah, and yet they're believers in Yeshua, the Messiah. Okay, so mostly people that have been Christians for many years, and then God opened their eyes to the Torah. So we started, learning and trying to follow it as best we can. And if you're one of us, you know that nobody's got it all figured out, and we're all doing the best we can, I think. But every once in a while, something comes up, and I just feel like I have to say something, okay? I mean, this may make some people mad, and so be it, I don't do it to be, a troublemaker or to tick people off, but, when I come across things that are going against what the Torah commands or what it teaches to be truth, I have to, call it, and really we all should be doing that. Now, I don't think that it's my place to contact different ministries and tell them you're doing it wrong and blah, blah, blah. And I realize this is not a huge audience that I have, so maybe just one or two people might see this and get what I'm trying to get at. And that's really all I can hope for, But the topic is on Rosh Chodesh or Chodesh, which is, in some people's mind, it means the head of the month or the new month. It's each one of the new months throughout the year. But as I learned through Jewish scholars, over the last many years, it truly means Chodesh refers to month. I mean, that was and apparently is still the Hebrew word that they use to refer to month. So Rosh Chodesh is the new moon, okay? So, I mean, that right there tells you the new moon is how the new month is determined. It's by the sighting of the new moon. Now, I realize a lot of you see it a little bit different, and don't expect anybody to take my word for it, but I will refer you to something called the Israeli New Moon Society. Now, what I like about this group is, for one, they've been citing the new moon, I want to say, for like 20 years, and it may be way more than that. And they keep records and all that. They're based in Israel. It's a Jewish organization. As far as I understand, all or most of them are Orthodox Jews in the land, and they know that the sages, taught that the sighting of the new moon over Jerusalem was the moment or the crucial point when the month was declared to begin. And that's crucial to the feasts of Yehovah. So if you're keeping the feasts of the Lord and you don't know when the month begins, how are you possibly going to know when the 15th day of the month is, or the 14th day, or the 21st day, depending on what the feast is? And when we get to the 7th month, the Feast of Trumpets, or Yom Teruah, is the first day of the 7th month, and you have to know when that new moon is sighted. That begins so let's say it was a Wednesday evening or whatever, it's the last day of the 6th month, or that within the next day or two we should be able to see the new moon, and you're there in Jerusalem with other people looking for the new moon, and hey, there it is, and you'd have to know from experience where to look and all that. And when you can visit, now some people use binoculars and all that, and okay, I guess that's all right. That's not my thing. I believe God invented this system or put it in place so that any old shepherd boy or man tending his flocks or whatever could just look up in the sky, and when they see it, they can then go and report, I've seen the new moon. And apparently the tradition became that when they had at least 2 witnesses, I don't know that it's a commandment anywhere, but when they had at least 2 witnesses, then the new moon was declared, and that began, that day that they saw it, began the new month. So if it was the 7th month that was beginning, then that day was the Feast of Trumpets, and they would, blow the shofars and you would begin the Feast of Trumpets, and then you knew that you had 10 days to Yom Kippur, okay, the Day of Atonement, that kind of thing. So why am I bringing all this up? First, I want people to, I have no connection to them, but the Israeli New Moon Society, I'm repeating that on purpose because they have on their main page a great explanation of why they look for the moon and why there's still a Jewish calendar and all that. And honestly, when you read it, you find out, well, the really only reason they are still going by the calendar that was created by the rabbis, or, I don't know exactly whether it was Maimonides or one of those guys. You can look it up. Some of you know better than I do, but rabbis of the past came up with this calendar. I should know. It's just, Hillel, I guess it is. But it was, meant to pre-calculate when the moons were going to be, and they don't really so much go by the sighting of the moon anymore. By that, they just go by a calculated time when the moon should show up, and so it's an approximation. So every single month on the Jewish calendar, the pre-calculated Jewish calendar that is not going by the sighted moon, is nothing more than a calculated guess, and it may be a pretty darn smart, well-calculated thing, but it's literally a guess to determine when, or to say, okay, somebody has decided based on math, this is when this month will begin. Now, I've heard tons of people talk about being on God's calendar, or, if God has an appointment with you, you want to be there. You don't want to miss that, right? But now I'm getting up and moving just because there's some people coming, and just trying to get out of the way a little bit. But so if you want to be on God's calendar, and you're going to have an appointed time with Him, do you want to be a day early and then He doesn't show up? Or He may have it, I want you to keep my feast, and it'll be, let's say, Thursday night this week or whatever, and you show up on Tuesday because your calendar says it's Tuesday when that feast should be. And what do you know? God's like, well, yeah, you can blow your horns all you want, but that's not the day I want you to keep. And I don't know if that makes sense to people, but it sure does to me. So I just want you to think about this, that we've got people, at least since 1967, have been living in Jerusalem, in the land of Israel. And they, I realize they didn't instantaneously start sighting the moon and all that, at least as far as I've ever heard. But for all those years, Jewish people have been in the land and have started on their own sighting the new moon. And that's why you've got that organization based there. And they are, able to tell you the month, according to God's biblical calendar, started on such and such a day. But yet, since they believe, since the rabbis or the Sanhedrin, way back when, the group of elders decided when decided a lot of things, but they ruled that calculated calendar was okay, I guess. But so until a Sanhedrin decides and makes the ruling, it's okay to go back to God's Torah and God's commandments again, they're going to keep following the rabbinic calendar. And I just shake my head. I'm thinking, my God, you guys. Now, since I'm not Jewish and was not born and raised in that, and I get it that that's just all they know, and that's to the best of their understanding. So I'm not trying to beat them up. But where I have a problem is when you've got people, and God bless them, people I'm friends with and all, they're followers of Yeshua, and we've come to find the Torah, and we're like, yes, we're going to keep the commandments and all this. And I get it. None of us keeps them perfectly. I sure don't, and I'd be lying if I said I kept them all, or perfectly. But what I'm trying to say is, when there's things that we know we can do, why wouldn't you at least try to do those? And don't, how can I say this? Don't defer to men that are not keeping God's commandments, and let them be your reason for not doing it. I mean, that's what we got out of the church for. The church for centuries has been away from God's commandments and teaching that the law was dead and all that. But when we woke up from all that, God did the waking up. Then we were like, okay, I don't want anything to do with that stuff, you know? But here's my beef. I've got several groups I'm aware of. One rather large ministry out here that's a Hebrew roots teaching ministry, and I'm purposely not saying the name, but I remember months ago they advertised on their website or something, come celebrate Rosh Chodesh with us. And I was like, oh my gosh, the new moon. They're going to be celebrating the new moon and keeping that. They must be going to sight it, surely, you know. So I called up the secretary. I knew the lady at the time that worked in there. And I said, oh my gosh, are you guys starting to sight the new moon? And she just kind of chuckled and like, no, we're just, you know, doing the, you know, the whatever, the tradition or however she said it. And, you know, it wasn't, I don't blame her, but yeah, bottom line is they're not doing the sighting the new moon. And I thought, oh, because to me, that would have been so cool. I don't know if you know, but there seems to be a small minority of people that are actually following that aspect and trying to get back to the true calendar, you know, by keeping the months, by sighting the new moon, you know. Sometimes that, you know, that is one of the funnest things for me. It used to be part of a bigger group, and we'd all go out, you know, different people's houses or whatever, and report to each other when we saw the moon and where it was and all that. And then we knew, okay, that's the beginning of the 6th month or the 7th month or whatever. And that's how we kept track of our feast days, you know. But like I say, there's, you know, several of these groups, and I actually saw recently where a group of 3 or 4 smaller congregations are all going to be celebrating Rosh Chodesh. And I'm like, and they're doing it on August 1st. And I don't know if I said it in this video. I've had to do a couple of retakes, but according to the calendar based on sighting the moon, the new moon shouldn't even be visible to like August 2nd. This is 2019, if you wonder. So not August 1st, but the next night, or possibly even the night after. I don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. And I don't have a calendar in front of me to say, but so I'm just a little bit flabbergasted that these groups of people that are adamant about wanting to keep the Torah, but because they don't want to violate what the Sanhedrin ruled hundreds of years ago, and they just feel like it's okay to just defer to a rabbinic calendar that was done, I think, over 1,000 years ago. And it's like God gave us his Torah to tell us how to do it. We have reliable people in Israel that will sight the moon, and with the technology we have today, you can find out on Facebook, email, God knows what, Instagram, YouTube, whatever. There's all kinds of ways people in Israel can notify you the new moon was sighted and this is the whatever month, you know. So all I'm saying is, my gosh, you guys, if you're saying you're celebrating Rosh Chodesh, but you don't even sight the new moon, you know, you gotta rethink that, I'd say. But I know that's gonna tick people off. It's easier to go along with the crowd and just play along because the rabbis seem to have the majority of Torah followers of Yeshua eating out of their hands or whatever. And I'm not saying it to be mean, but I really see that a lot of people, they won't bother to you know, really research that thing about the, you know, sighting the new moon, but they'll just go with, it's easier to just go with a pre-printed calendar. And I thought that's not a whole lot different than what we've been doing in the world, you know. But that's my opinion. Hopefully somebody out there will have a little light go off in their head and go, wait a minute, yeah, that's silly. I mean, you don't have to leave these congregations, but and you probably won't be able to convince the leaders to change, but you know, people need to think about this. It's not really what you're doing. You know, if you're celebrating something that you're not even looking for, how can you celebrate the new moon if you never look for it? Okay? I'm short for time, so I'm going to shut it here. Yehovah bless you and keep you. Shalom.